Global Digital Learning Strategy Team.
Nice to meet you. Hello.
И разбира се, нашият представител в Европейския парламент, изключително активен по дигиталния дневен ред. Това е Ева Майдъл. Благодаря, заповядайте. Сега ще ви позволите да се прехвърля на английски, за да можем да продължим дискусията. So I'll switch into English now. It will be more easy for some of you. There is a lot of expectations from this panel that we are going to give to provide a meaningful discussion on the future skills that are needed and also what will be the challenges for the transformation of the universities in this respect. But also talking about technology, we don't have to forget the impact of technology on the society and how do we combine actually the preparedness of the future students with both technological skills, but also good understanding of the impact of technology on the society. In this respect, I would like to start the discussion with this particular question about which are the top 5 skills according to you that are skills of the future, and how do you define them as top skills for the future when we all admit that we don't know what the future will be looking like. So maybe to start with our gentleman here, Mr. Ilamov, you have the floor.
Thank you. There are a lot of discussions about future, and I would like to start with a quote of a very interesting anthropologist who said that the best way to cope in this very speedy environment, turbulent times, is by frequently visiting the future. There are a lot of cartoons and science fiction and novels where if we go back in time, we'll see that a lot of today's inventions have been actually existing in art. So I think that the skills that are needed in the future is first future-oriented, so people should have long-term horizon thinking. Second, there is a lot of discussion about the need of STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And I'm great supporter for that, but I would like to use another term called STEAMed, which is, besides these, art, empathy, and design. So I think that all of us will be designers in the future, and our kids will be designers. So they design games right now, they play games, but which is most importantly, they create their future. So we have to be all designers. And I would not go to 5, but just okay. The last one, I would say, it's a skill that can be easily crafted, and it's curiosity. So we have to move from trying to build only expertise, but we should nurture curiosity of kids and students and grown-ups. So curiosity can actually deliver all the all necessary knowledge and other skills. So these are my 3 top skills.
Thank you. That's very interesting. You added the design in this. So I started already to feel a little bit incapable for the future. What's your view, Ms. Bocconi?
Well, I fully agree with what was pointed out right now, and I also believe, looking into many research studies and evidence from around the world, that there are also another critical elements, that is the ability to learn, and more in a more effective way, so to recognize, to be able to recognize effectively clearly what are the specific learning needs and the best way for each individuals to also be able to become an effective learner. And on top of this, also the ability to collaborate, which still remain high right now, also in the agenda in education, but still it's not totally or fully exploited. So particularly a certain level of education, such as also higher education, collaboration, and the ability to really build upon the contribution of the others, it remain a critical skill that should be addressed.
Thank you. Kati, what's
Well,
your view as
I'm-
an educator and as a representative of the business?
Yeah, so I think that both in education and actually how the businesses or economies or societies is changing, I'm a big believer for the 6C. So, it's communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and computational thinking. And I think that the big question is now that, of course, all the governments and countries should think that what is most crucial for their policy and needs as a society and as a way to, enable the growth and success and prosperity in the future. But right now, I feel that we have kind of woken up with the question about the computational thinking and capabilities, because like Ilkka has mentioned, are you a user or managing or designing? You need to understand what role technology has in the society, what it enables, but also how it's affecting us and our societies. And I think the last 12 months has shown a lot that, for instance, how social media has actually corrupted, societies or also causing also social, pressure and problems. We all need to have new citizenship skills, and it can lead up also to, to profession. And for me, I think the biggest question is that how we get there, what we need to change in the terms of curriculum, how we learn in schools, and foremost, we get what we measure. How do we change assessment? And I see this question going around a lot of governments around the world and Europe, Middle East, and Africa, where I'm mostly focusing for. And I see way too little discussion that how we actually assess these skills. Because that's the only way to get to the core of the transformation in our, K-12 or higher education.
Thank you, Kati. What's your answer, Eva, from the very large viewpoint from the Parliament?
Първо, здравейте и от мен. Трябва да споделя, че съм много признателна за поканата на министъра, на Министерството на образованието, на заместник министър Ангелиева и на госпожа Сачева да участвам в това толкова важно събитие, не само за нашата страна, но за и Европа като цяло. Поздравления, че продължавате традицията и Educate to Create. Вече, надявам се, ще се превърне в една традиция, където да успяваме да съчетаем много успешно добрите практики от Европа и света и да ги обсъдим тук в София Tech Park. I'll switch now into English as I've been advised that that would be a much more easier way to convey the message across within the panel, and also because despite we being in Sofia and in my home country, we have representatives from across Europe and across the world in the whole. The skills, first of all, and then as the skills that I think are important match a lot of the skills that already have been mentioned, I would like to put three other points that I would further develop in the panel. But when it comes to skills, I think skill number one, because we are here doing the link in between the educational sector, the government, and the business, I think irrespective of which sector you come or you're in, learnability is the skill number one we need to invest in our society. But most importantly, when we speak about AI and higher education and in general education, we need to know that nothing happens without the human factor. So investing in soft skills such as creativity, such as the skill to be able to convey your message through, the skill to be able to collaborate and work in teams, the communication skill, the adaptation skills will be extremely important. It would even go beyond just having pure technological or digital skills in the future. So that's to put it shortly. But later in the panel, I'll be very interested in discussing how to make our societies more competitive. And I think a key point here that I want to raise is when we speak about digital or the fourth industrial and technological revolution, I think we miss to speak about the talent revolution that we are about to face. And how do we have this talent revolution coming in the years ahead of us? And I think when we speak about talents and developing it and investing in it, there's 3 points that we need to assess. The first one is the current and the future demand on skills. Competitiveness, if we want to further develop it, so to say, and enable it to happen on a much broader scale, we definitely have to invest in training. Then we need to rethink and redesign the educational systems, higher education, but not only, all educational systems. I would like to speak more about innovative education. If you want to call it education 4.0. And thirdly, later, I want to speak a bit more on rethinking governance and leadership, because it's an absolutely vital component in developing these resilient societies and making sure that we have the prepared people. So these are the 3 points later I would like to further elaborate.
Thank you very much. So let's see what the list look like. Strategic thinking, empathy and design, STEM, curiosity, ability to learn, ability to collaborate, learnability, 6 C's, among which creativity, critical thinking, computing. So it's a long list. So I'm interested to also provoke you with the question, because we're always talking about the speed, about the dynamics with which everything is changing. We are always talking about the unknown in the future. Where do we start? Because everyone knows and understands that there should be a transformation. Everyone understands that there should be a transformation of the teachers, transformation of the curriculums, transformation of the universities. But if it was you to make the whole transformation, where do you start from? From the teachers, from the curriculum, from the society, because the society also must be tuned to this transformation. So Kati, you would like to take the floor first?
It's a very, unwanted answer, but in a way it's all of that. It's a systemic change. So we have to look all the different layers, starting from the policy vision, that what the new normal, what is the new vision of the country that looks like, what are the kind of key capabilities and what this successful future looks like, and then start to go from there. We have to look curriculum, but also assessment, because in schools we still today teach too much and especially assess too much the routine cognitive knowledge that is going to be automated by artificial intelligence. So we are measuring kids for the things that they will lose for computers in the future. So it is really systemic and deep change. But I think the key success factors there is leadership across all the different levels. Leadership on the national level, on the ministries, but also institutional leaders, any lecturer who has to lead the transformation in their, in the study hall and in the groups. And so it's, and usually the research shows that they are of course afraid of the change, because they have 3 questions: what will happen to me, what will happen to me, what will happen to me? So that's why we have to have the pressure. But the key thing is that people feel supported, that they can start to develop their own journey as a teacher or as a learner or parent or as a minister of education, what the new normal looks like and how I can be that this is a journey that we go together.
But talking about the speed again, it was mentioned also in the speech of our minister that it was 22 years ago when IBM Deep Blue beat on chess Garry Kasparov,
Yeah.
and still people are playing chess. Is it really so fast, as we are always talking on different conferences, that everything is extremely fast, everything is very dynamic? And here we see Dr. Sharkov has said that the first definition of AI is in 1955. Is it really very fast? Or are we just talking to the people?
Well, if we look at the data, I don't know, the data that shows, or the prediction across European Union is that 40% of the current job titles will disappear for 2030. And at the same time, future job titles, 65% are new. They are not invented yet. So I think this is the kind of paradigm exactly, that the change. At the same time, I must say that in a way, yeah, it's not so rapid, but if we now look technology and the way we use technology, or how artificial intelligence is affecting us through social media or Netflix, or we have new opportunities in Airbnb, it's a drastic change. Because the student today doesn't need a boss, they need a customer. And through the mobile phone, they have more access to business and creativity that needed a super expensive factory and teams in the past. So I think we are a little bit like the frog in the hot water, and we don't really see how much it's already boiling. But if we would go to a time capsule for 10 years ago, we would realize that yes, it's quite significant, quite significant change.
Thank you. I'm curious to see what's your opinion on this, Todor.
Where I start, or the speed of change? Or
Both.
My starting point would be very simple. I would reshuffle all the classrooms. So I'll get rid of the current classrooms, both in secondary education and in higher education. I just come from design school from Stanford. I went with 3 students from the faculty last week. So there are no typical desks. The way that the classroom teaching and learning is organized is totally different. The second thing, I would totally gamify the education. I'm a big fan of Microsoft Minecraft education version. That can revolutionize and motivate kids not only to learn what they have to learn, but also to be creative. And so, I mean, they can learn entrepreneurship even through Minecraft, and that's part of their own culture. So, and it's not something very new. So this is one of my favorite pedagogists, Uno Signeus, from Finland.
Yes.
He reformed the Finnish educational system long before the latest reforms that we all praise, by asking all the students to create toys, wooden toys. And that had a tremendous impact on the Finnish education 100 years ago. So the current toys of kids and students are games. So these are my 2 starting points. About the change, I would probably ask you, when was your first encounter with artificial intelligence? Can you remember? At what age? Someone? Okay, my first encounter with artificial intelligence was when I was at 5th grade. And it was a computer program doctor who simulated a visit to a shrink. And at that time, we only could play, that was in the mid-80s. We can only try to kind of fool the program to prove that it's a stupid program. Now kids encounter artificial intelligence already in the kindergarten, and they put Cortana and Siri to talk and to argue. So I think the speed of change is real. And it's not only the speed of change, but it's also fundamental, because students these days in class can create a business that can make them millions over 6 months or 1 year. Unfortunately, Bulgarian ecosystem still don't have that much of experience where high school students or university students can do that. But in US, there are plenty of examples where kids and university students out of their coursework projects make millions, or simply by playing. So I think this is fundamental change that we have to cope and to prepare not only the top 5% or top 10% of the kids for that, but say 90% or 100%.
So, Dr. Bocconi, how do we reach this 90% coverage? Because not everybody can be so holistic and can be developed in such a holistic way.
Yeah, that's always one of the crucial points that we have tried also to face in the past years and decades. But I agree with my colleagues in the sense that a strategic innovation, it's really a matter of combining strategic choices at the leadership level on one side, but also on the practice side. So either if you prioritize one level and you're not looking sufficiently, or you're not boosting also the other one, you are really not able to promote this innovation. So, and the biggest risk that many experts in the field are seeing is that, differently from previous technological innovation, the massive presence already in education of IE systems is that, I mean, we will find a moment when we will be already using AI in our teaching, but AI systems that have been developed and designed by non-educators, which are taking also tasks that are central to the teaching role so far. So there is a biggest risk with respect to previous technological innovation, which is driven by this particular peculiarity of AI. So it's very much important that teachers take up the role and very much are very much able to change their pedagogy, to change the way in which they are teach. And if some aspects of the teaching profession could be supported through AI, there are very much other tasks which cannot be demanded or taken up by technology or by designers of technology who are not specialized in the field of teaching. So that's, to me, is a priority, to be able to not leave this important part to non-educators.
Thank you. And Eva, politicians are not meant to be neither technological nor fast, according to the understanding of the people. What is the role of the politicians in this?
Yeah. Thank you. I actually wanted to chip already earlier when it was mentioned that perhaps everything should work. How do we do it? That we should all somehow collaborate and work together. But I actually think that it actually starts with the vision you put ahead. And I think what we do here in Bulgaria is, for our foreign guests, if they don't know yet, is that in the past years we've put education as the key priority for the government, something that many of us have been working for years to make sure that it is this one priority that would lead to long-term goals and hopefully achievements, which we already actually see. Because in the past year, we have seen better results in some of the examinations. We've seen that more youngsters graduate actually a school than fall out of school, and so on. But I think, of course, you can have this thing happening, this change, without this big vision, but it will be instrumental to have the vision, to have the plan, to have the strategy in place. And this is why, as one of the first 3 points, I pointed out to rethink governance and leadership. I think the future of skills is also linked with the future of Europe, in a way, because if we do not have the prepared people. If we do not have those politicians with a vision, with clear aim where they want to reach, the competitiveness of our continent, I think, would be at stake. We cannot just think that things would go as they are. And I think there is a link between technology and the business sector, because I really think the developments there are very fast, and institutions are much more, what would be the right word? It's more difficult to take decisions. Sometimes in the European Parliament, it can take us 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years it took us to abolish the roaming charges, something that everybody takes for granted nowadays. But when you have your phone or your tablet and you can access and do something within a couple of minutes, you think that institutions have to give quick answers to its citizens. So there's a lot to rethink about the role of institutions, of a role of leaders, and how we take decisions. We've been dealing in the past couple of years with issues related to security, to migration. If we do not think today about how to upskill our professionals, then they would not ask 3 times the same questions, but maybe 30 times the same questions, because citizens are scared what happens to them. It is true that every job will change in the next couple of years. Students that are first grade today, by the time they graduate, they would do a job perhaps that did not exist when they joined school. So we need to make sure that institutions are also agile and are able to change and are flexible, just like the business does it and goes through various transformational projects and ways of succeeding in a way. So I think there's a lot for the institutions to work, apart from setting the vision, making sure that the operational model delivers results much faster. One way would be to work more on projects. When it comes to education in the European Parliament, I cannot do concrete things when it comes to enabling legislation. So that's why with my team we work on a few concrete projects. One related to giving the skills for success to the students, called Naučime da umeja, similar to educate to create, actually. The other one is making sure, and we do it together with the Ministry of Education, upskilling our headmasters of schools, making sure that they act like CEOs of the school, and they're all under the cap of a big organization called Education Bulgaria 2030, where we aim to see our educational progress in the next 10, 15 years, where we join forces with public sector, the ministry, business sector, civil society, and so on. And so I think project-based sort of forms would enable us to deliver results faster to citizens.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very valuable. And I want to go back to Todor, because apparently what we are discussing is the impact of AI on the higher education. And you started from the classrooms, but I'd like to go with you to the curriculum. And having said what you have said about the holistic approach, does it mean that the curriculums, you are a dean of the business administration faculty, but what does the impact of AI mean on higher education from the technological part and from the humanitarian part? Does it mean that, for example, technological universities should embed in their curriculum more humanitarian subjects? Or does it mean that humanitarians should embed more technological subjects? Or they should still remain technical and humanitarian, but more collaborating between one another? What's your view about that?
That's a tough question. Definitely the end result from a student perspective should be that technical students should have more humanitarian subjects, and humanitarian students or economics and management students should have technical skills in their portfolio. How exactly this will happen, whether this would be with own faculty in the same universities or cross-university cooperation, that's very difficult, especially in Bulgaria. we have a very heavy legacy in that, including from a legislative point of view. So there are very kind of ridiculous requirements for 70% of the curriculum to be taught by internal professors, which limits the ability to attract, even with the latest changes in the legislation. But no, I mean, the technology, how this will happen is not that important. The end result, you're very right, so we have to do that. And at our faculty, we're doing this. For instance, in our classes, students develop chatbots, they develop mobile app applications, although they are not technical students, but they have to understand how much time is needed, what's the cost of developing all these technologies, how they're organized. For the technical students, right now, if you go into the debates on driverless cars, you'll see that the most important debate is the ethical issue. I mean, which one to hit and to kill or to save, politically correctly said. So there should be a more holistic and changed curriculum. But I would say that it's not that the curriculum should be changed only. I would say we should get rid of the structure of lecture and seminars. So we should have only seminars. That's it. I mean, lectures, I mean, you can do 15 minutes lecture and then you do the seminars and so on. So all the classes should be interactive and experimental. So I'm a true believer of experimental learning and discovery, and not just the old style, I'll tell you this and you'll remember and take the exam and then forget everything. So if you do it by hands, you will remember forever. Maybe not forever, but for some time. So these are the most important changes which should happen in our universities.
And according to you, Ms. Bocconi, what is the important change that must happen in the universities all over Europe? There is already this European initiative about European universities, networking, Erasmus Plus program, collaboration, collaborative approach. Is this the way where we should go? The collaboration, internationalization?
Yes, and also the cross-fertilization among departments, as you mentioned. If we look into successful models also within Europe and outside Europe, the opportunity, for instance, for the Department of Computer Science to provide not only more classical learning path, such as, for example, engineering, but also to embed in computer science department other degrees, such as the experience, for instance, in Princeton is now that the computer science departments offer both engineering and bachelorate of arts, and they actually the students start the freshman years exactly doing the same path, and then they specialize later on. But this has been proved to be very much important to attract, for instance, women into the computer science, which has doubled the entrance into late entry into computer science. The number of female entering computer science field has really doubled, and because I mean they had the opportunity to start from one sector, arts, and then by taking this kind of module and courses, realizing that actually computer science could also have potential impact on other interests that they have, and so they were still able to move towards another direction. So definitely having the opportunity and provide students with the opportunity to have more flexible learning path. And also I totally and fully agree with the fact that there should really be a great change in the how the teaching actually happens, not only in higher education, but also across compulsory education. So changes the way in which the teaching is done, not traditionally. And this is still one of the major challenges all around Europe as well.
And Kati, what do you think about the impact of AI on the partnership between universities and business? Which is going to be the leader in this partnership, the business or the university, or they have to be equal in this partnership? Having in mind that these days innovations are being born in business rather than...
I think it's definitely equal, and if you look at artificial intelligence, it's not only the business impact, it's also the human society impact.
Yeah.
And I think that, of course, also companies and businesses are interested what kind of development we get from for higher education. So there's the institutional interest for for that, but there's also society interest. And I think, echoing for the previous comments, I think we have to think artificial intelligence, but we should once again look a little bit deeper systemically. And the research shows that the current knowledge building practices, even in higher education, is not necessarily where it should be, because lecture is pre-Gutenberg knowledge building literacy. It's 600 years old, and we still stick into that knowledge building format, even though if we look then at what the productivity in enterprise or in the public sector is more and more knowledge building practices, building knowledge together, sharing information, validating information, etc. So that's why it's also very important that the knowledge building practices are modernized, because what also research shows us is that even though we think that we are teaching digital natives, but Instagram is not same as productivity of collaboration in teams in the business life. So the kids are actually yes, they are digital natives for edutainment, but not necessarily productivity. And latest in the university, we have to bring that productivity. And for that, I would connect then the vision of artificial intelligence, how to use, understand, manage, design, teach. Then we go for that whole piece. And I must say that, sometimes even the structural changes, like in Finland 10 years ago, the government kind of helped 3 independent universities to create a new university with University of Economics, Technology and Science and Design. And I must say that bringing those three very different disciplines together and them to have very specific curriculum, but also joint curriculum, has really changed the learning experience a lot. And then the question of women in technology. I think that, of course, we should start to fix that much earlier than in higher education. But I think your example about that we are able then through in the higher education studies to get women to be more part of the digital development as well. It's not only a question about the equality of the society. It's also the question of the competitiveness and well-being, because we cannot limit the technology innovation only for 50% of the population, when 77% of the jobs will be IT-related by, in the next 10 years' time. So we need also, like I say, that digital transformation and artificial intelligence are so big phenomena in the society that we cannot leave them only to the hands of young boys. We have everybody. We need women, we need middle-aged women, we need, all the, parts of the society to be part of building that new, vision. And that's why right now, I think, the calculations are quite humongous, that if we would in Europe be able to get boys and girls equally be interested of the IT profession, that would, be a new growth factor for across the European Union.
Thank you. I just want to mention that Bulgaria is actually on the first place of women in ICT in Europe.
Good job.
There is at least this place which is led by Bulgaria, which we are very proud of. But as we are almost at the dawn of our panel, I would like to finalize with another provocative question to you. I spent my Christmas reading the new book of Harari, 21 Lessons for 21st Century. And for those of you who haven't read it yet, I strongly recommend it. But he raises there the concept of irrelevant people. We are talking about, at the moment, about the impact of AI on the higher education. We are talking about the future. We are talking about the new generations that are going into the education system. But we have a lot of generations that are already outside the education system. And we will be having this problem maybe with this so strong divide of not only new technology, but also new mentality, as AI already was mentioned by previous speakers, that it's a culture, it's not just a technology. And how do you feel, how do you think that these problems can be solved? How do we actually try to decrease the gap between those? Because not everybody can be so quickly adaptable with learnability, with creativity, with technological thinking. There will be millions of people lagging behind. So from political point of view, this is question number one, I think, on a global level, how to minimize these big divides and gaps.
For me,
Eva, for you.
Okay, well, it's a billion-dollar question, I would say. But I started, because I'm also sensitive of time, I started by saying that we should work towards a talent revolution from every bit of society, irrespective where you're young and in primary education, in higher education, or you have left education. I think that's exactly the wrong concept that a lot of generations think, oh, I've studied, I got my diploma, I'm qualified. No, you're not. The cycle has changed. The cycle goes from studying, working, studying, working, studying, working, and probably for the generation to come would like triple or even more. If we do not work on our talents, irrespective of age, from where they come, we'll have, I think, digital minorities to start with, or technological minorities, or however precisely you want to put it. But most importantly, the business will get into a global war for talents, where people and companies will fight to get the most prepared professional, not just from across the street, but perhaps from across the other continent. So we need to be sensitive of that as Europeans and how we prepare our people. I think, as I said, starting by working on projects, but very importantly, Denitsa and both Karina know that a year ago, more or less, the European Union for the first time dedicated a particular big meeting on education. It has never happened. 4 years ago, if anyone would have suggested it, to have such a meeting in Brussels, people would have said, are you crazy? We have nothing to do with education, with skills, with talent, never. Now we are going to have in a few months the next meeting. What I wish to see is a European summit dedicated on education and skills. And then we can start talking of trying to actually have this real vision on a European level.
Thank you. Kati, your final words and conclusions and remarks.
I think, the question about the assuring the whole society and the talent is modernized is something that we just have to pull our sleeves and start to work. What happened in Finland last winter was that the government and Helsinki University, an IT company, launched an artificial intelligence course, and they expected that 10% of the population will do that. They got 100,000 people doing that in the first 3 months. So obviously people are yearning to, to learn. The assessment is that in Finland, from our 5.5 million population, 1 million people need to be re-educated. It will mean new kind of learning. It can be, you cannot go for 5 years to university. It's going to be micro, credential. It's going to be certification. And this is really an area for public-private partnership, and something that I see that universities can have a much bigger role to with digital learning to scale the know-how and understanding to the wider society.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Bocconi.
I would also add the fact that I think it would be crucial to further research how people learn, particularly when interacted with AI systems. So to then use this further understanding to, in a way, guide the social impact of AI. So to being able to reskill and upskilling those who are now out of the education system.
Thank you. And your final words, Тодор?
I'm pretty optimistic about the inclusion of irrelevant people. There is a tremendous example of Barcelona about 15 years ago where the municipality provided, that was before the, smartphones and everything. So the municipality provided for each family a digital camera and asked the school to engage students in storytelling about what was Barcelona years ago when their grandparents were young. So they had to video and do some and post some of the stories, and then their grandmothers and grandfathers started to watch them. And then over less than a year, probably one term, everybody was enthusiastic and became internet user and learned to edit videos and everything. So by simple social instruments of increasing relationships between within society, within families, based on the technologies, based on the inspiration of one of the team, we can make miracles.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Дами и господа, това беше от нас. Надяваме се, че ви беше интересно в рамките на този динамичен панел, в който нямаше възможност всички да разгърнат в пълнота различните си мнения, но все пак мисля, че се опитахме да засегнем различните аспекти на уменията на бъдещето, необходимостта от промени в университетите, какво се случва с изкуствения интелект и как той би повлиял върху обществата ни. Мисля, че тази конференция е изключително полезна и важна, не само защото всички ние сме тук и говорим по тази тема, но и защото вече се родиха и две конкретни решения. България ще има своя национална стратегия за изкуствения интелект и освен това ще направи своя национална програма. Това беше обявено вече от нашия министър и пред медиите, така че мисля, че всички вие, така да се каже, макар и не толкова помпозно, но участвахте, може би, в нещо, което е едно малко историческо събитие за България. Благодаря ви много за вниманието и за участието и отново връщам микрофона на моята колега Карина Ангелиева.
Благодаря, Деница. Благодаря на целия панел. Много смели неща се казаха. Надявам се, че и бизнеса, който е следващия панел, чу може би някои страхове или предизвикателства пред политиците, но и много решение и ентусиазъм, които последните думи на професор Елмов сподели с нас.